Well, it's wonderful to be here in person and see all these familiar, friendly faces again. For those of you who I don't know, my name is Jake Jungers. I'm faculty in the Department of Agronomy and Plant Genetics at the University of Minnesota. And I am here with my colleague, Tara Ritter, who will be speaking after me. I'm fortunate to share the stage with her and to give you an overview of the KernzaCap project, which you've probably already heard a little bit about over the past couple of days. So we're here to tell you what it's about. I'm really excited how the day started off, these topics, and I'm going to kind of continue with some of that here. I can advance slides. There we go. Okay, so all of us in the room are well aware of the crisis that we're in. We have greenhouse gas emissions continuing to increase in the atmosphere. We are losing soil from our land. We are polluting our water. We are experiencing devastating losses in biodiversity. And the truth is, agriculture is contributing to these challenges. Agriculture is contributing to these challenges, well, for a number of really complicated, complex reasons. One of the reasons is that we have fewer crops on the landscape. This is not the best chart to depict this, to show it, but it does provide some data. This shows the relative acreage of different crops on the North American landscape over the last 100 years. And if you look to see where we're at now, vast majority of our farm acres are occupied by 3 crops, and really largely 2 here in the upper Midwest. Well, we're not in the Midwest anymore, the Great Plains and Midwest, corn and soybeans. But not only are we losing diversity on the landscape, these crops also all happen to be annuals. And I know not all of these annual crops you need to till the field every year, but truth is a vast majority of these annual crop fields are tilled every year. And that has extreme consequences on all the things that I mentioned. This is a photo that really highlights the issues that we're facing with soil loss. This is a photo of where the Mississippi River and the Minnesota River merge, the confluence near Hastings. And you can see the Minnesota River runs right through the heart of Minnesota through a lot of ag land. And here you can see it's carrying with it a lot of soil into the Mississippi River. So it's a really dramatic visual evidence of the problems that we're facing. There's also some invisible problems. Nutrient loss into our groundwater is largely an invisible problem, but it's one that causes human health concerns. We also have nutrient loss to our marine ecosystems and are experiencing dire consequences there with dead zones. Greenhouse gas emissions, these are also invisible. We have CO2 emitting from our soils when we till fields, nitrous oxide emissions from crops that are heavily reliant on synthetic nitrogen and other inputs. So we are all well aware of these problems and the crisis we're in, but is the United States Department of Agriculture well aware, and are they ready to help us address these problems? We're here, we know to some extent what we need to do, but is USDA there to help support this? And perhaps they are, we're gonna find out, but the Sustainable Agricultural Systems is a new program that has been developed by USDA NIFA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And the goal of this program is to provide substantial amounts of funding to large, major innovations in agriculture that can help it be more sustainable. So provide solutions to these really grand challenges in agriculture. These projects are all a special type of project, coordinated agricultural projects, CAPS. So there are many different types of CAPS and different programs. We now have a Sustainable Agricultural Systems program with CAPS, lots of acronyms. But the CAPS are special because they require funding, investment in research, extension, and education, all 3 components. You have to show that you're investing in all aspects of those. They're typically regional to national in scale, multiple institutions involved. And in this program, there's about 10 funded per year at about the $10 million mark, and they're about 5-year projects. So this program, I believe, started in 2018. We applied during the 2nd year it was available in 2019. Project started in 2020. So we have a KernzaCap. The title of our project is Developing and Deploying, key terms, a perennial grain crop enterprise to improve environmental quality and rural prosperity. So I want you to focus on this term enterprise. This is not just a project to advance the germplasm. It's not just a project to figure out how to grow this. We are focusing on the enterprise and all aspects that go along with that. So what are those aspects? Well, we do need to continue to advance the germplasm. We need to come up, we need to learn how to grow this profitably. We have to figure out how to best translate the knowledge that we gain from the research to the growers, to the end users, all the other stakeholders. Again, thinking about elevating an entire enterprise. Of course, we have to measure the environmental impacts. That's what this is all about, partially. We have to identify and create markets, build the supply, all of the key ingredients to actually making this commercial. Along the way, we're working to influence policy to facilitate the adoption and incorporation of Kerns on the landscape and in the marketplace. So I just want to emphasize one more time that all of these aspects need to be elevated simultaneously. We know what kind of problems we can run into if we have too much grain and not enough end users, or huge crazy demand without enough grain, or a lack of a supply chain there to move the grain to the end users, so on and so forth. We just have to really focus on coordinating these efforts. And this requires a really large interdisciplinary team. Folks working in all the different disciplines, as you can see here, and KernzaCap is really encapsulating all of that work. And these interdisciplinary teams are key to all of this, and they have been in the making for many, many years. Personally, I was first introduced to the Kernza network at Estes Park in 2014. And since then, there have been a number of meetings like this. And it's incredibly difficult to quantify the value of meetings like this, but I think that we'll be able to build a case for why this is so important. So we've had KernzaCons. I missed the 2016 one, so I don't have a picture, but 17, 18, 19. I can't show slides without Tim Cruz in a soil pit with Kernza. That just has to be in my deck. So Lund, Sweden was the last one, a little bit of a broader scope. So the value of these meetings and building these partnerships and relationships is just critical. And I think it's a major reason why we got the KernzaCap grant. So so the CAP is building on a foundation of partnerships. Building on a foundation, we also need to expand these partnerships and collaborations and diversify these partnerships and collaborations. But we're working on a foundation. And it's really focused on formalizing these and bringing resources to these partnerships. So I said, I think that the relationships are a main reason why we got this grant. I'm going to show you some quotes from the reviewers who reviewed our proposal and just highlight a couple of those. The reviewer said, as a reason why this is a strong proposal, a strong team and project that has been in the works for a number of years. They're ready to scale up to the next level. Connections with a number of players, both big and small. Here's another reviewer. The team is well prepared to develop a model system for bringing a new product to market. And that's actually one of our key integration goals, is to develop a blueprint for the next generation of perennial grain crops. The relationships they have developed with commercial interests up and downstream, and the duration of time they've been working collaboratively is impressive. And the last one I really liked a lot because it calls out a couple of the institutions that are critical here. Strong foundation for the project with past and current research, extension, education work has been conducted by Land Institute and the Forever Green Initiative. So it's clear that these meetings are extremely valuable and they lead to big new initiatives. At the heart of KernzaCap, which Tara will explain to you more of the details, but at the heart of it is this objective around integration. And integration is, again, to elevate all aspects of the work simultaneously. And we're going to work to stand up these partnerships, both new and old. We really are going to focus on fostering communication, the feedback loops between the objective groups, which you'll hear about in just a second. And again, end on this with this idea: can this model that we're putting together here be a roadmap for the next generation of perennial crops. And I say on a chalkboard because there's probably going to be a lot of edits made to it along the way. Last note is just remembering that Kernza is a really, hopefully, potentially wonderful crop that's going to provide environmental benefits and new economic opportunities for growers. But we also have to remember that this is one innovation that would be added to a new landscape that's more diverse and perennial. So a tool in a broader toolbox of the things that we need to make changes to improve agricultural sustainability. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tara, and she's going to give you an overview of how we're structured and how we're operating this KernzaCap.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tara Ritter. I'm the project manager of KernzaCap, and it's really nice to meet those of you I haven't met and see those of you that in person for the first time for a lot of you, but are you using the arrows? Yep. So Jake overviewed really nicely what a CAP is. I want to emphasize that CAP certainly does not encompass all of the Kernza work that's out there. So just like Jake was talking about the foundation of partnerships, there is Kernza work happening out there that is important and it is additional to the CAP, but the CAP is important because it is a huge opportunity. It shows buy-in from the federal government, scale up Kernza and more on the landscape, more in the marketplace. So I want to show some of the co-lead institute leads on the grant, mostly in the Midwest, but 3 in Kansas, 1 in California. And what's not pictured here is all of the community organizations that are also partners. So nonprofits, businesses, supply chain partners, farmers. There are over 80 individual collaborators on this grant, all working together. The activities are organized into 6 objective teams. So Jake outlined those really well. And I want to emphasize the intentional integration at the middle. So again, to lift up this entire enterprise, all of these teams need to be working together. I'm really going to stay pretty high level here. What are the goals of these teams? And then at the end, I have some sort of specific numbers and outcomes from the first 1.5 years of the grant. So of the 5 years that CAP will run, we're about 1.5 years of the way in, and some exciting things have already come out of the grant. But the first team is a germplasm and trait evaluation team. So a goal of improving breeding populations and releasing varieties adapted to different regions. They're also working on a low-cost genotyping approach to expand the database of genotype plants. And we're going to hear a lot from folks on the germplasm and trait evaluation team today, and they'll be able to talk more deeply to this really complex work. There's a food science component to this, evaluating breeding germplasm for nutritional quality and storage stability, and then exploring the impact of breeding on root architecture and ecosystem services. I like this picture that Nicole Tao just sent me of her planting one of the field experiments in this project. So the agronomy and on-farm knowledge team, there are 2 field experiments that I'll talk a little bit about on the next slide, and then a number of experiments with on-farm partners. And so leveraging grower experience and knowledge to uncover more how to profitably grow this crop. I took these 2 diagrams from Priscilla Pinto. She made these. But the 2 research trials that are planted, the top one is the genotype by environment by management experiment. So you can see there are different varieties planted across 6 states or 6 sites. Is it 6 states? No, it's 2 Wisconsins, 5 states, 6 sites. Looking at different row spacings, different intercroppings, and understanding how that all interacts. And then there's also a fertility trial examining different fertilizer management practices for Kernza. So you can see different rate, timing, source, different levels of fertilizer application, and again, across those same 6 sites. So these are 2 of the research experiments that are showing us how to grow Kernza. And the environmental quality team is working really closely with the agronomy team. So doing some joint sampling and installing lysimeters on those same sites, but looking more at the environmental benefits. So specifically water quality, greenhouse gas emissions, and soil health changes and how Kernza influences those. Then education, extension, and policy is one objective team, but it feels like three entirely separate ones. There's a huge portfolio of work. There's a picture of a field day last summer at the bottom left, and there's going to be a whole suite of new field days this year, and you can talk to Connie about those. But organizing field days are just one of the things that this team is doing. They're also working on educational curricula from middle school all the way through graduate level, and I think there's going to be some discussion about that this afternoon. Developing extension capacity and technical assistance for farmers, and better linking up growers and researchers for that knowledge exchange. And an entire policy team raising awareness with public decision makers about the transformative power of perennials, and constructing a national framework for intermediate wheatgrass adoption opportunities through state and federal conservation programs. And one way we're already seeing this is perennial grains have been integrated into a CSP enhancement recently. And so there is some exciting progress happening. We have the supply chains team, Christopher Abbott here, delivering Kernza to the co-op in St. Peter, Minnesota. The supply chains team is researching, developing, solidifying Kernza supply chains and markets. So that really critical work to link grain with the end user. One of the activities is they're developing a Kernza Stewards Alliance to be a voice for Kernza licensees and industry partners. And I think there's a lot more information about that coming tomorrow. And then finally, a focus on this integration right at the center of this flower diagram. So how are we lifting up all the aspects of this enterprise together? Jake mentioned one of our big goals is to lead the way for the next generation of perennial cropping systems. We are collecting along the way both what did work and what didn't work, and hoping to help that, use that to help inform perennial grain crops that are coming after Kernza. We're really trying to intentionally build long-term sustainable and shared leadership for Kernza. And we're also working with a team of evaluators to understand the impact, systems change, and emergent learning from this grant. And I wanted to plug, we're conducting a social network analysis that is going to happen this summer. So it's the initial step, at least, is happening through an email survey. And I'm pretty sure everybody here is going to be getting that. And I really encourage you, if you receive an email from evaluators of Kernza CAP asking you to fill out a survey, please do take the 15 minutes to do so. We're trying to understand who is the Kernza network right now, and how does this grant impact that? How do we expand beyond our current collaborators and continue to build this network of people working on this? I have less than 5 minutes, it's great. I pulled this graphic from our year one annual report. And so just some of the statistics of Kernza in general and some of the specific outputs of CAP over the last year and a half. Sort of big picture numbers that the Land Institute compiled is there were nearly 4,000 active acres of Kernza in production. And this is all of, I think, September of last year. So it's already 6 months old. But over 600,000 pounds of Kernza harvested in 2021, and 52 Kernza growers with active trademark licenses. Within the CAP project, there were 16 interviews conducted with teacher researchers and educators to inform the educational module development. 8 new Kernza variety candidates in year one statewide yield trials, and 133,000 genetic data points collected and stored in the intermediate wheatgrass database. And then to talk a little bit about those field experiments, there were 623 experimental research plots established across 5 states. And on those, there were over 500 soil samples taken, 120 lysimeters installed to monitor water quality. So there is very real work happening on the ground to learn here. There are 6 additional Kernza variety candidates established in St. Paul as of fall 2021, and then 5 CAP-sponsored field days last summer with over 400 attendees connecting with each other, learning from one another, and 2 outreach events for legislators and advocates across the nation. And then no number attached to this, but we had to mention that the groundwork has been laid for a next generation business association that will steward and advance Kernza on the landscape and in the market. So these are just some of the impacts of the CAP, and we hope that there will be a lot more over the next 3.5 years. And I look forward to hearing more from all of you in the next day and a half. And I think we might have a couple of minutes for questions. This is the website if you would like to learn more. Thank you.